Hello, nuclear enthusiasts, and welcome back. I am Leonidas. This is Nuclearis, and today I'm going to do a Nuclearis 101. I'm going to take you through as though it's a beginner's guide and explain every piece, every part, every component, what it does, how it all plays together, so that you can have a better understanding of the game and manipulate things on your own based on the concepts that we're going to talk about. This is not going to be so much of a how-to. It's going to be a about what, right? More informational than step-by-step. If you want to see those, I have plenty of videos, step-by-step guides, tutorials, walkthroughs, guides, all of that. So this is going to be almost entirely informational. So we're going to go ahead and start a new game on easy mode. We are going to skip the initial help. It's going to be ready to start operations. We are not going to do chemicals this time around because this is more for a first-time player who's just downloaded the game and is looking around going, I have no idea where I am or what I'm doing. Please help me out. So that's what we're going to do here. And if you're looking for the step-by-step, go to my YouTube channel, check out the other guides and things I have there. Also, I have cranked up my graphics. I have a very old computer and a very old graphics card. It still has 3 digits in the type, just to give you an idea of how old it is. So we'll see how my computer does and if it looks any different. If you've seen my other videos, they're kind of on potato mode. But anyway, so far, reflections. Yeah, the floor looks shinier. Anyway, glass. Who's putting their dirty mittens on my glass? Anyway, okay, here we go. We are in the control room. Welcome to the Nuclearis control room. You are the man in charge. You are the operator or the woman in charge. And we're going to go through each part and what it is. So first, let's start with the general concept of how a nuclear power plant. Oh man, that does look smooth. Look at that. The lighting, the shadows. Anyway, sorry, I'm getting distracted. Let's talk about how a nuclear power plant works. So first of all, it all starts with heat. We generate heat and we output energy, electricity in this case. And so there's multiple steps into getting that heat into that energy, the electricity. So it starts here in our core. And our core has a fuel inside of it. And that fuel, through nuclear fission, generates heat, and that heat then is transferred through our primary cooling system. And that primary cooling system, one, keeps the core from getting too hot, our fuel from getting too hot, but it also takes the heat and moves it down the line. And from there, the primary cooling system takes it to our through a pump, like this guy here, to our steam generator. In our steam generator, that heat is transferred, and it essentially works like a boiler. It boils water and generates steam. That steam then travels through these pipes into another room that we'll go visit a little later on, and there's a turbine. Think of like a pinwheel that you blow on, or maybe one of those old timey what were those called? The stern wheeler boats where the paddle wheel in the back right would turn. Anyway, steam driven like that. So it turns these paddles. And these paddles, or these blades, I guess technically they're called, then are connected to a shaft, and that shaft turns an electric turbine or electric generator, and then that's where the energy is created. Well, after that steam passes through those blades, through this pinwheel, the steam has to go back around, get cooled down, and turned into water and sent back, because all of these are closed systems. What that means is it's kind of like having a hose where the hose is connected end to end to make a big circle, a big loop, and the water just stays in it. As you use it, right, it just gets recycled and reused over and over again for the most part. So all of these systems are closed systems generally, except for the last one that we'll talk about. And so it's really important that those get cooled down. They go through certain steps, and anyway, that steam gets turned back into water, and then it gets turned back in. That water gets turned back into steam, which gets turned back into water, back into steam, and on it goes. So let's get going. The first thing that we're going to talk about is your friend, and well, oh, look at this. Oh, the lighting, man, this is slick. What have I been missing out on? Sorry, I'm kind of marveling a little bit. Outside, it still looks pretty much the same. But I do dig the inside. That's pretty neat. Okay, we're going up to the second floor. Again, we're going to do a walkthrough of the whole building, but I want to start with talking about our friend AO. He calls himself Al. People call him Al. I call him AO. And this is him right here. AO is battery powered. This is his charger, his home where he comes to recharge his own battery. And he can do a number of tasks for us. He also, if things break, he's your guy. Now, you do have to pay him, right? And the money in this game is through prestige points. You just saw that I got an achievement for coming to this room. As you complete certain objectives, you earn prestige points, and you can spend those prestige points to upgrade your facility, perform maintenance, buy other parts and materials, things like that, which we'll go over later. But AO, that's what he does. He's your assistant. He can do certain tasks. Again, we'll go through that in a little while later. But if stuff needs to be fixed, he's going to figure out what needs to be fixed, and he's going to do the fixing. So that's AO. Going back to our room here, we have our tablet. If we press tab for tablet, it comes up. And here's a lot of different things. We're going to go through each one on their own, but AO commands, right? They're right here. Gives us a status. The objectives, right? Here's things we can do. Normally they'll tell you how many prestige points you can earn after each one. Once your plant is up and running, you earn, for every hour that you meet the city electricity demand, you earn prestige points, and you gain this monetary system. Sometimes we call them dollars. I'm in the U.S. We use dollars, obviously, so I use prestige points and dollars interchangeably. So anyway, more on the tablet later, but you're going to use the tablet a lot. And with this new version, I should have said this at the beginning, version 2.2, patch 175, which is important because earlier versions are going to look very different. The reactor is quite literally it's an entirely new reactor that we're using right now compared to the old one, and patches will change some of the physics, the dynamics of how things are calculated. So just keep that in mind if you're watching this after the fact. So our tablet, you're going to use it a lot, and we'll go through each part later. So actually, I should have done this when we were upstairs. So in our power plant, when we are generating electricity, we can power ourselves. Whoops, I just came to the same floor. Obviously, right? Power plant should be able to power itself, otherwise it's kind of goofy. Well, we also have these backup power generators. This is what we're running off of right now. Can you hear it running? No. Oh, you know why? Because it's actually not running. Never mind. It would be on. It would say power. Right here, it would be lit up green. It's because of that box I checked that said skip all the initial startup and setup. It did that for us. Right now we're running off of power from the city, external power source. So rather than delivering electricity, we are receiving it. And that's important. Whenever you are not generating power, you should be on external power. We'll go over the consoles here in a minute, and save the backup generators for emergencies. They kick on. They're fuel driven, diesel generators essentially, and there's gas cans up there that you actually fill them up with, and you have to maintain them and things like that. So just keep that in mind. So let's start off just talking about our system. So we have a core inside of our core vessel is a fuel, and it's uranium, and that uranium, that fuel is what creates the reactions, and those reactions generate heat, and that heat is what starts everything off. Well, those reactions are controlled by things called control rods, which I'll get to in a second, and that kind of slows down how fast those atoms and that fuel is interacting with itself. The control rods, as you I don't want to get ahead of myself. Around that fuel, around those control rods, is a coolant. And that coolant in this case is water. And that water does two things. One, obviously, it cools. It keeps the fuel and the core, the reactor itself, cooled down. But it also moves heat down the chain, down the line, for us to use later, for the purposes that we need it for later. Imagine having something hot like a rock, or something else, and you want to cool it off. Well, you put it in your sink under running water. That rock is your fuel, and the running water is the coolant. and you can speed that up, you can slow it down. Obviously, the more water you have running over it, the more heat it's going to take away from it. And there's different dynamics to think of it that way. So our core is where it all starts. That's what kicks it off. The control rods, which are these guys, if you imagine the fuel's in the middle and you have 8 control rods and they sit around the outside, and you can actually see a picture over here. We'll go there and we'll switch it to the inside of the core. The fuel is not loaded right now. It would be sitting right here, but these are the control rods. And there's 8 of them, and they sit around. In this particular reactor, you can have up to 9 fuel banks, fuel sources, and each one has 8 control rods. Never have less than 8. We can have an explanation about that another day. But they are what regulate the rate of the reaction of the fuel, because the fuel reacts with itself. So the control rods are a vital, important piece of equipment. If you want heat out of this, you do it by raising the control rods. Again, we're not going to go into the how. That's in another video. But raising the control rods, exposing more of that fuel, causes more of it to react and generates more heat. So then the primary coolant takes that heat, right? Keeps the temperature kind of cool, but it takes that heat away and it sends it down the line. And the speed of that is controlled by the primary coolant pump. We call this the primary cooling circuit because it is the first line of cooling for our reactor, our core, our fuel. Anyway, it sends that down to our steam generator. Before I go there, I want to talk about the pressurizer. The pressurizer is connected directly to our primary coolant loop. Actually, for those of you who are visual, I'm going to come over here to this board. Here's our core, and we can have up to 3 loops. Ignore this loop and ignore this loop for now. So we're just looking at this loop right here. Here's our core, and here is our primary coolant loop. Okay, that pump we were talking about, it sends water, cold water in, hot water comes out. It gets pumped into our steam condenser where it releases all of its heat into a different water system, and then it comes back as cool water to start the process all over again. The pressurizer is connected. If you think back to science class, water boils at 100 degrees centigrade or Celsius. And you can, without getting too deep into it, if you raise the pressure of that water, you can stop it from boiling at 100. You can raise its boiling point. Well, that's what we want to do, because if our core is running, and you're going to run it at 300 degrees Celsius plus, well, obviously our cooling water would just boil off. So to prevent that, we have this pressurizer. This pressurizer raises the boiling point of the water in our primary coolant pump. It's a set it and forget it. Once it's on, you don't have to touch it, as long as it doesn't break. These venting and these cooling are for emergencies for the most part, so you won't have to touch them. You literally not going to go through the how. So that's the pressurizer. It is a vital component of not only the primary cooling system, but everything. Fortunately, though, like I said, you don't have to babysit it day in, day out. All these different pumps and these valves really matter. Coming back to this is our pump and valve diagram. You have another one here. These are vents. Vents are for gases, right, such as steam. Drains are for liquids, in our case, water for the most part. And that's important to know. And valves can let either steam or water through them. But each one of these will shut off a certain part of our loop, and you can isolate certain parts, and for the most, you won't need to generally. You leave these all open because we just want it to flow through all the time. Unless there's damage, unless there's leaking, unless something's going on, you won't normally close these. This one's a little bit different. We'll get to that one later. You also have one last diagram over here. And this is pumps that bring in our water and our coolant from outside the building and fill it with these big tanks. You have these giant tanks. In this case, here's one and here's one. And these sit with water in them, waiting to be used. In case this drains, it gets too low inside the water inside the core gets too low. There's tanks for water to fill our steam generator. All of those have tanks, and each of those have pumps to get them into well, from the outside world into those tanks, and those tanks into our different components. So that's what this diagram is showing you, and showing it you visually, so that if you ever need to know, okay, which pump do I flip on, you can come here and it'll tell you which valve do I need to turn, how do I drain the condenser, right? And they're very easy. You just click them open or close. Never mind, we're not gonna do the how-to. I keep going off. And then this is again your bread and butter that will help explain the different different loops to you. So moving right along, the heat, right, that comes from our reactor core that's in our primary coolant system that's above 100 degrees Celsius, thanks to our pressurizer that has passed through all these loops and these pumps that have moved it along, now ends up with our steam generator. Our steam generator is a tank of water, but it's enclosed, right? It's a metal vessel. And that water just kind of sits in there, it's just chilling. Right now, literally, in our game, it's sitting at 20 degrees Celsius, which is just under 70 degrees Fahrenheit. So it's just kind of hanging out at room temperature. As the heat from here at 300 plus degrees comes in, well, obviously that's a heat source, just like your stove. It's going to cause the temperature to rise, and when the temperature gets over 100 degrees, it will create steam. That's the steam that turns our turbines to create the energy. So the steam generator, is where we take the heat from the core, transfer it to a different water system. Again, the pipe just runs through it. That pipe is hot. The water makes the pipe hot, and the hot pipe is what is the heat source for our steam generator. As that heat burns off, the water from our primary coolant, when it comes out the back end of the steam generator and gets circulated back, is cold. It's cool. There's an actual gauge for that called your core inlet, and it measures the temperature or at what temperature it's coming into the core. It's when I run it, it's generally up here, probably around, I don't know what that is, 250 degrees or so. It's pretty high, but it's enough to do our job. For us. And there's other ways you can control that. You can see that in another video. So our steam generator is kind of where the magic happens, and this is where you're going to spend most of your time as you are playing. It's our secondary coolant system. Excuse me, I had a cough there. Without this, we could not cool down our core. Because what happens is, imagine that water that's running through our sink, right, over our hot object. Instead of just going down the drain, it comes right back to the faucet. Well, eventually that water is going to keep heating up, get closer to the same temperature as the rock. And eventually we're going to be trying to cool off the hot rock with hot water. It's not going to do anything. That heat needs to go somewhere. It needs to leave that whole cycle, that circle of being repeated, and that's what happens with the steam generator. It acts as a coolant system for this guy. Takes away the heat and, in this case, boils it off. So it's a very critical component. And the dance, the balancing act comes into trying to get that steam from our boiling water into the turbine. Now, when you put a pot of water on to boil on your stove, the steam just kind of rises and goes wherever. There's not really a lot of pressure to it. It's just open. But if you had a pressure cooker where you put the lid on it and you kind of seal it in there, well, as you boil off this water, the steam that you're creating inside has nowhere to go. And as a gas, it starts pushing on the sides, the metallic sides of our metallic vessel, and is creating this pressure. And the pressure builds and builds and builds and builds until it explodes or something, right? I won't go into the physics of it, but the pressure builds, and it needs an escape. And the way that it escapes is through another pipe that goes to our steam generator, and that's controlled through this here, the main steam valve, control valve. And that as we open that up, the higher the number, the bigger the aperture, or the bigger the opening that we allow steam to exit from the steam generator into our turbine. But imagine this. Imagine you have one of those pinwheels like from when you're a little kid, they're kind of plastic and shiny, and you blow on them and they spin. Well, if you have your mouth wide open and you're kind of as though you're like trying to fog up a glass, and you're trying to spin the pinwheel with your mouth wide open and breathing on it, you're not going to do a very effective job. That's what the equivalent is of leaving this at 100. You're not going to remove the steam. It's not going to be coming out very fast, and you want it fast because you want that thing spinning quickly. In order to spin, as you're blowing on whatever it is, the little fan blade, the pinwheel, whatever you're thinking of, as you close your lips into a smaller hole and you blow, then that is what causes it to spin faster and faster. That's why normally these are going to run in single digits. Again, another video, but your main steam control valve is a very vital component, and knowing how to manipulate it properly changes the entire game and how efficient you are and things like that. And the frustration people have is, well, this is open at 100%. Why isn't there just tons of steam flowing out? Well, it is. All the steam that's being generated is being allowed to exit, but it's like having your mouth open and just trying to breathe on a pinwheel and spin it. It's never going to work. The flow speed, this is the pump inside the steam generator. Well, it's not inside the steam generator. It's for the loop that's inside the steam generator. We're talking about the second loop here, the secondary coolant loop. And that pump is right here. Because what's happening is water in here in our steam generator obviously is turned to steam. That steam is released through this valve here, and it comes into the turbine. And we're blowing on that pinwheel, and it gets pushed through, and it comes into this guy called the condenser. We'll talk more about it in a second. The condenser turns it from steam, cools it back down into water. So imagine that somehow you've got this boiling pot of water, you're able to capture all that steam and like put it through some tubing in some ice water or a cool system. At the end, you would get water back out. It goes from that gas, that vapor, steam vapor, into liquid form of water. And that's exactly what's happening here. So the steam gets drawn through here into the condenser. It comes out as water, and that pump then pumps that cold water back into the steam generator to then be recycled to be boiled off again. And then, like I said, steam, water, steam to water, and it stays in this closed system, this closed loop. That pump is how fast we're dumping cold water from the condenser back in there. And that has two effects. If you're dumping cold water in, well, one, that's going to kind of cool everything off. Imagine having that pot of boiling water and you're dumping cold water into it. Well, it's going to reduce the overall temperature of what's going on in there. And if you reduce it too far, you're not going to generate any steam. So you don't want too much coming in. But if you aren't returning it fast enough, well, you've got more steam that's being burned off. Your water level's dropping in your pot. And you're generating more steam, and eventually you're going to lose it. So you got to find this balance, this equilibrium of, okay, we're bringing enough water, cold water back in, that the level of the water level's not is dropping at the same rate, or being, I guess, raised back up at the same rate that steam's burning off. So when you look at it, if you were to be able to see at eye level, you wouldn't actually see it ever drop, because water's being added back in at the same rate that steam is exiting. And it's this kind of this limbo, this dance. And that's what we're looking for in a thermal balance. That's what these numbers mean. Your coolant inlet is how much of the cold water you're dumping back in, right? Your coolant volume. Right now, I have 50,000 liters of water sitting in that steam generator. As it gets boiled, this is going to drop. If I let it get too low and it boils out, well, I got no more water. I'm not generating any steam. I'm burning up right? It's like putting an empty pot on the stove. Bad things are going to happen. We've boiled off all our water. The steam outlet is how much steam is coming out. If I set this to 100, this will not be 100. I'm not going to go into the dynamics of that because I don't want to get. I'm already getting deeper into this than I had planned. The steam generated is how much steam you are boiling off and is just being created in general. When this is in balance, in harmony, in whatever you want to call it, synchronized, your coolant, let's say, is 30. I got 30 units of water coming in. I got 30 units of steam being generated, and I got 30 units going out. which is exactly what you want. Think of it as three, kind of a three-pot system. Water turning into steam, and that steam being sent off, and they're all at the same rate. This is being raised because it's losing. As you let steam go, right, the amount of steam drops, but you're generating more steam. You're refilling that steam bank. And as water comes back in, well, you're refilling that water bank, which is then refilling the steam bank, which is then refilling the bank to be sent off. And that's what we're aiming for. And it's a little more complicated than it seems, but that's why I've made these videos, so that hopefully they're at least beneficial in showing you. And again, this is the information, the concept side of it. So the steam generator, super important. And it is one of the most frustrating parts of this game. None of this existed right here before this current release. So that's our steam generator. And I don't want to say in a nutshell, because I gave you way more than a nutshell, but play with it. Okay, I don't need to go into it, but this would release your pressure. Pressure's a good thing. You need that pressure because, again, if you have no pressure inside your vessel, then you have no pressure to launch through this valve. Because, again, this is just the valve. This is just how big the opening is that you're letting out. If you don't have any pressure pushing that steam out, right, to think, going back to where you're blowing on something, right, and you want the air coming out fast, this is your lips, right? How the opening of your lips, how big, how much air you're letting out, and this is how hard you're pushing out. Is the best way that I can describe that. And then this level is the amount of air that's in your lungs. Imagine that this is somehow magically putting air back in your lungs without you having to breathe in. That's kind of the best analogy I can give. Hopefully that helps. So that's our steam generator where most everything happens. So then, like I said, this gets sent down to the turbines. Well, the turbines have two parts. I'll bring up a visual here. Turbine room. And you can't see it very well, but there's this big giant guy. We'll go see it in a minute. And then this guy. This is where the steam comes in. It has the big paddles, the big fan blades that get pushed by the steam. And it has a shaft. It's connected to, it's a one-to-one connection for those who care, that turn this, which actually creates the electricity that then gets sent through these green power lines out into the city. So, but there's some mechanical resistance there. The pinwheel is very easy to turn because you just blow very lightly and it spins. Imagine that pinwheel that you're blowing on to spin is now made out of steel. You're going to need a lot more air. You're going to have to blow pretty hard to get that thing to spin. That's what our turbine is. So that's why there's a balance of, well, you need a certain amount of pressure to get it to spin. But anyway, so at the turbine, it spins, it generates electricity, energy, and we're told by the city how much the city needs. And that demand will go up and down, just like it does in the day, right? Everybody wakes up during the night, middle of the night, our demand's down, our lights are off, our TVs are off, we're just not up and about moving, using our appliances, so the demand in the real world is just less. As everybody starts waking up in the morning, going to school, going to work, whatever it is you do, that demand rises. We're making our coffee, we're turning on our televisions, or whatever it is. And then kind of midday, it drops a little bit again, because we're all at work, we're all at school, we've kind of left our houses for the most part. And then when you come home at night, it rises again until it drops off for the middle of the night. And in the real world, a nuclear power plant it generates one level of power, and that's it. It's called like a base level power generating plant. It just keeps it consistent, whatever. And then like the coal plants, the gas plants, the windmills, the solar farms, the hydro dams, all of those are what turn on and off, rise and fall along with the demand. In our game, that would be boring. You would literally dial in a number and sit here and nothing would happen. So what we do is called a load following model, where the city's going to demand more and less electricity of you throughout the day. So you have to figure out how to meet that. Yeah, you can just find a high number and leave it there, but that's boring. The challenge comes with trying to follow that and see how close you can get it. And there's some really critical components here that help us to do that. So right now we are not connected to the city. It tells us that we are disconnected. If I right click and zoom in, we are disconnected from the power grid, not sending electricity to the city. In order to do that, we would come in here and through our communications, we would request to start operations. They'd give us a start time. More on that in other videos. So after we are generating power and our turbine's spinning up and our electric generator spinning up and we're ready to rock and roll, we have to connect to the grid. Without getting too much into it, electricity works kind of like a wave, and there's a phase and a frequency and such that we have to match. And that's what this synchroscope does. It helps match the RPMs or the phase of the rest of the city's grid. And I have an entire video that's just on this. It's pretty short, 4 minutes, 5 minutes. But we use this to get in sync. Fortunately, we don't have to worry about hertz or amps. Those are just or volts. Those are just kind of automatic. And the RPMs are set and forget it for the most part. Once your turbine, your generator is up and running, you sync it up and it just sits there. And then this is just the number, how much you generate up and down. And you can have up to 3 loops. You start with just 1. And this is how much you generate. That 1 loop is generating. And it would be the same for each of these individually. You add these together is where you get this number. These, I don't use these gauges much at all. And you can right click on some of these, it'll tell you. If it doesn't have any information, it just kind of blank like this, right, until you get to something that has info on it. This tells you, the energy that the city's demanding. Your volts, it'll always be 22,000. What we generate is always 22,000 at 1. I don't know why. It's always 50 here for the hertz and the amps. Well, there's kind of no demand. And it shows that this is what is being delivered to the city. This and this is the goal, to make those match. Now, it happens to where you can create too much, right? You overshoot it. In fact, at the beginning of the game, you're going to way overshoot the demand. You cannot bring spoiler alert, you cannot reduce everything down low enough to meet the lowest demands of 8 megawatts or 9 megawatts or 10 megawatts and keep it stable. Because again, when you bring it down so slow, that pressure, that speed that the steam's coming out, that it's coming out of your mouth, right? That whereas we're trying to spin that steel pinwheel, it's not enough to overcome this mechanical resistance, and this will stall. It'll trip, and your turbine will wind down because you don't have enough torque on it to keep it spinning. So don't even try. So then you're going, okay, well then what happens with the overage? Well, let me tell you, if you are generating electricity at your turbine and it's not going anywhere, it's going to eat it up in our game. I should have said this earlier, disclaimer, very little of this game translates to real world. The reactor, how the turbines work, even the physics of ideal gas law, Boyle's law, the thermal balance laws, all of those, we have been tweaked a lot for this game. Anyway, back to this. So that overage, it will eat up and destroy your generator. Make it literally catch fire. So how do you overcome that? Well, we have these guys called resistor banks. And without going too much into it, there's other videos for that. They are a heat sink. You can Google that if you want to. Heat sink, S-I-N-K. And they take all that extra energy and just send it off as heat out into the atmosphere. So by using these resistor banks, it keeps you, makes sure that whatever you're delivering matches whatever is demanded up to whatever this number, 90,000. This is way higher. In the last reactor prior to 2.2, it was 5 megawatts. 90 is crucially important. That could be upgraded, more on that later, but especially in the first part of the game, you will use your reactor, or I'm sorry, your resistor non-stop as you're running your reactor. It's critical. The last thing is the power transformer. You have to transform the current before it goes out. It's just set it and forget it. It will wear out. You have to do maintenance on it. We'll talk more about that later. But it's always set at 150, and you won't go over that for a long time in this game. Something to keep in mind. This is keep it in automatic mode unless you really want to increase your difficulty level. Compensator doesn't really do much. It has to do with turbine and kind of the ups and downs and fluctuations that you get from it. We don't need more of that. But resistor bank, vitally important. The bypass valve. So as we're sending steam from the steam generator to the turbine, we have the option to bypass the turbine. Actually, before we get to that, let's talk about the next step in our chain. So it goes, like I said, from the steam generator to the turbine. After the steam goes past the, as I'm blowing on my pinwheel, the air doesn't just get absorbed by the pinwheel. It hits it and is deflected off and keeps going out into the room. Well, we're not using an open room in our system. We're using enclosed pipes. So after it goes through that spinning turbine, the blades, it needs to go somewhere. Well, it's routed from the turbine to our condenser. And our condenser is what cools it off and takes that steam, turns it back into water, and sends that now cold water to our steam generator to be turned back into steam, to be sent to our turbine, to be sent back to our condenser, to cool off, turn into water, and repeat ad nauseum. Let's say we wanted to go from the steam steam generator, also known as an evaporator. Our steam generator, we don't want it to turn the turbine, but that steam needs to go somewhere, so we just want to send it back to the condenser to be cooled off and sent back as water. So it's almost kind of like, instead of having a 3-stage loop, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, we just do it a 2-stage loop, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. You can do that via bypass. And if you look over here on the diagram, that's what it's showing. That the bypass just takes from the steam generator and it goes straight to the condenser. And then from the condenser, it gets pumped back. This C4 valve is your MSCV. The bypass valve is actually not shown on here, but it would be kind of like right here-ish. Or maybe it's better to have this connect here, and it would be another valve right here. It stops it from going this way. Right now it's kind of broken. It actually comes after the C4 valve, but don't worry about that. It'll be fixed. So the bypass is used if you want to let everything run and just shut down your turbine only and let everything else run. Right now, if you need to do maintenance on your steam generator, you got to shut down the whole system, because this guy, the core, is cooled by the coolant system. The coolant system is cooled by the steam generator. If you shut down the steam generator, who's going to cool these guys? Next thing you know, the temperatures skyrocket, you have problems, and so on. So it's a lot harder to shut down like just the steam generator to work on it without shutting down the entire plant. The turbine's not that way. You can bypass it and fix it, swap it, sell it, build it, whatever you want to do with it, and the rest of the system will work essentially just fine. You won't get any money, you won't get any prestige points from the city because you're not meeting your demand, but you can do it. So that's what the bypass is used for. What I use it for personally is shutting it down. You can also shunt away some energy. If you're over generating, you can take, like you're blowing on that pinwheel and you want to divert. You don't want 100% of the air out of your mouth to hit the pinwheel and spin it. You can, kind of like put your hand up and make part of the air miss the turbine. You can do that. You can put it at 50, so it's 50-50. Half the air or half the steam from here is hitting the turbine. The other half is just going straight back to the condenser. That's what the bypass could be used for. And people will use that to bring down how much steam is hitting this and how much steam is generating. But again, you get it too low, you get below the torque value of about 2.5, 2.3%, and it's just gonna stop. It's gonna shut off. You're gonna fall out of torque, out of sync. So that's what the turbine valve is for. Again, if you want to know what all these other buttons are for, go look up my synchroscope video. So finally, it brings us to the condenser, which is our third loop and our final cooling loop. And this is the condenser loop right here, this big blue one. So we have water in every stage. Water here, it stays in this loop. We have water here, stays in this loop. And then we have water here. And these waters do not touch. The pipes just kind of transfer heat from one to the other. So what's interesting is this water cools down, right? The heat that comes from the steam is bled off into this water and it comes back as cold. But the heat that builds up here has to be taken away. And so it gets drawn out as steam, or excuse me, hot water in this case, and it comes down here, it gets pumped into our cooling towers. And these are the iconic giant towers at a nuclear power plant with these huge, massive plumes of steam coming off. I won't go into what those are, but it's a way of cooling it. So that as it comes here as hot water, and this is then released out in the atmosphere as water vapor, go make clouds and raise humidity and all those things, and comes back as cold water to be heated up by the steam coming through here to come out as hot water, cold water, and it continues the cycle. So it's when I say passing down the chain, I literally mean that. We are taking our heat source here and it's released the end of the chain here. Heat is generated. It enters the loop here. It exits at the steam generator as now it's hot water, and then it gets boiled, different water gets boiled in the steam, which spins a turbine, which comes here. And that heat unit then is dumped off into the condenser. And then that heat unit from the condenser gets carried down to our cooling tower where it's then dumped off into the atmosphere. And that is the chain. Reactor, steam generator, turbine, condenser, a cooling tower. And that's it. It's a 3-loop system. And this is generally how it works in the real world. A simplified version, but this is how it works on the most granular, basic level. So, I hope that didn't. Hopefully that helps kind of understand. Are you going to use that as you're going throughout this, like as your gameplay minute by minute? No, absolutely not. But it is kind of important to know, because then as you understand how these different concepts and how they work together, you can try and diagnose, okay, why is it reacting this way? Why is my temperature rising but my pressure falling? Those two should kind of be in lockstep. As one goes up, the other should go up. And why is this rising? They should never all three rise. Why is that happening? Why is this going up in these? As you see these things happen, you can think through it. Okay, well, my pump is dumping cold water from my condenser over here, and so that's causing this to raise, which is causing the temperature to come down, which means I'm generating less steam, which means that my pressure is going to fall, which is why I'm seeing my steam generated down. But that's why I'm telling you all this, so that you can take the concepts and apply them to your individual game as you play it. So there's my masterclass in Nucleare's reactor system. Now we're going to go through a couple basic things. I know I've been jabbing on 33 minutes already. Holy smokes. External power, like I said, it comes from the city. It's very important. This should be on. I leave mine on automatic. I won't do it now because it would kick on. But the reason I do that is when my generator is up and running, this can be turned off, and I leave my generator on automatic so that if there's a power failure, it'll automatically kick on. If I'm outside, if I'm somewhere else in the building and and we lose power, and this is on manual, I have to run all the way back and hit start for this to start up. I do have backup batteries that are upstairs on the second floor, but they're minimal, and obviously they're limited. So this should be on until you are generating energy, and then this comes off, and this would then switch to manual. So external power, very important. So let's take a tour through our system. And before I do that, I'm going to send AO on a mission. I'm going to turn him on and tell him to go do that. So don't worry about that. We're going to go through that at the end. I have a little list that I'm going through next to me. So this is the first floor. This is where you're going to spend 90% of your time. Stairwell. It goes up to the second floor. It does not go to the third floor. This ladder goes out. Actually, I'm not going to tell you where it goes. You can go find out yourself. I'll tell you what these are. These are storm shutters. not like nuclear reactor killer. So hey, there goes AO. See you, buddy. And this one is for that far window. Most of them just have one button. But anyway, this is the first floor. If you get trophies from passing audits, they'll show up here. That's neat. You can sell them. You can sell your trophies for money if you need them. So let's go up to the second floor, which is our storage room / generator room / AO's house. Not his house. It's where he resides. AO does have a house. It is not inside the building. That's all I'm going to tell you. I highly recommend you go explore the outside. The one thing I will say is this game started out as a horror thriller. I'll just leave you with that. Anyway, storage room, fuel for our generators, oil for our pumps. These different items. I don't need to go through too much. Man, it's dark in here. Why is it so dark? This new lighting system. F for flashlight. Welder uses electrodes, mends broken pipes. This is, I forget what it's called, the resistor coupler, something. Fix electrical wires. This is a control rod motor. Our control rods, as they go up and down, it has an actual motor that can get damaged or burn out. This is a replacement, which you can replace. Backup, or your batteries here, emergency batteries. These ones can be used and charged. You can store extras over here. They will not charge. But if you're in an emergency and need to swap one out, you could take a full one from here, swap it out with one of these, and put the other one back. Circuit breakers, if you wanted to shut off power to a certain room. This is AO's backup batteries. They will not charge. It's for storage only, if I remember right. AO's charger, if you needed to shut it off for whatever reason, it's there. AO can get wet, and he will not charge. Just so you know. Like I said, backup batteries go here. Then these are just cabinets for spare parts and things. Okay, as you use fuel cans and oil cans, they change color. They become white when they're empty, and you throw them away here. You will fail your audit if you have empty cans around, I believe. You have lighting control. Oh, this is new. Interesting. Yeah, this is new. I guess since I turned on the upgraded graphics. Ooh, look at that. Oh. Okay, I guess we just want it fixed. Anyway, that's new. I haven't played with that before. This changes the door right now. Yellow means it'll open as soon as you get close to it. If you want to have to manually open it, you do this, back up, it'll turn green. Green means don't go. Unlike a stoplight. So if I would run into it, I have to hit the button in the lock. So doors leading to the reactor room are manual, not automatic, and the door outside is also manual. Okay, so the only way to get to the third floor easily is through the elevator. We'll go up there now. This is where our generator and our turbines are, not our power generator. The electric generator that creates, ooh, it's kind of neat. That creates, oh look, these are our cooling towers. You just can't see the top from here, but that's where steam would be coming out. Yes, you can go out and see them. Yes, you can go climb in them. No, you cannot swim in this game. Spoiler alert. I'm just gonna leave it with that. Go explore the outside when you have time. This is our generator room. Whoa. Spoopy. And these are the giant turbines. Steam comes in through here, through this blue, I believe, no, through the green. Comes in through the green, and through here, it turns this giant turbine thing, the shaft, right? The big paddle wheels I was telling you about, the blades they call them, and then there's the shaft that connects to this guy that is what spins and makes the electricity that goes out through these green lines. This, I will show you where this comes out. Remember this little like cubby, it's just stairs. There's nothing in here. There's stairs. I will show you where those come out, but I want to go back to where we were. What would you do in here? Look at stuff. You can turn valves manually instead of using that panel if you wanted to, if you had to, if there's a power outage, if they're damaged, something like that. If they're damaged, AO has to fix them, but I'm gonna gonna go back to potato mode. I kind of liked it a little bit better. This lighting's kind of weird, but anyway. So let's go back now to the ground floor. Remember, 2 is storage / emergency generators or backup batteries. 1 is our control room. 0, ground floor. It's where the magic happens. Here we go. The number one thing that kills people in this game, yes, you can die. No, there is no respawning. When you die, you either go and reload your game or you start a new one. Number one thing that kills people in Nuclear is elevator. I'll leave you with that. Stairs are down here just like everywhere else. This, if you want your name on the wall, you can donate through Patreon, however you say it. This goes outside. Hello, world. Again, lighting panel, that's new. These are all new. I've never seen these before until I just now did my graphics. Okay, here we are, decontamination room. You would have more hazmat suits. You saw one upstairs outside the control room. This is a decontamination room I'm not going to go over. This is our reactor room, the giant reactor. Yes, you can fall in. No, you cannot swim. You sink. There's a way to get out. It's way over there. If you think you can get in and walk on the bottom of this and climb up, try it. I recommend saving first. Yes, all of these pipes are functional. They actually do things. In this game, when you start like a new pipe, a new system, and water comes up and passes through it, it actually takes time to get to where it's going or where it's coming from. The steam generator, and this is a pump, circulation pump. You can upgrade and have 3 loops. This is loop, well, the 3rd loop, or C loop. It's your primary. Your secondary, loop B or loop 2 would go here, and your tertiary, loop A or loop 1 would be over here. Those are extra control rods. If you had the chemicals turned on, it would be behind this door here. Watch out for AO. These are what little pumps look like. Those pumps that I was telling you that take water to and from the tanks into our different components or from outside. They actually have little pumps that you can see. More valves and things. All of these electrical conduits are real. They're not just decoration. There is stuff going through. I will let you explore down here. Or you can watch some of my videos where I go through them. This room will be used for something later. Fuel room is up there. That's where extra fuel is stored. You can also, as fuel over time it degrades, I talk more about that in my other videos, and as that fuel degrades, eventually it needs to be pulled and disposed of, and there's a whole system for that. These are your resistor banks. These are your actual resistors. You have 4 in each one. They are about yay long. This is 2. This is your transformer. You can add 2 more. Why you would want to do that? You can add 3 more resistor banks. Why you would want to do that? Watch a video. This is the condenser room. 2 ways you can get here. We came through the reactor room. You can also go back through the hallway the other way, and I will show you that. Remember those stairs I told you about? Hey, remind me to tell you about those stairs later. They're right here. This is where they come out. This is the bottom where they come out. And you would go up to the 3rd floor there. Okay? Note that these wires are live and they actually are functional. These panels are functional. Radiation alarm. Blast door. Don't get under it. It will kill you. Radiation blast door. I think they're 2-sided. I should have told you something loud. Sorry. It gets loud. Is there a button on this side? Yep, there's one right there. This is your condenser right here. Your condenser. Oh, there was AO. Do you see him popping his head up? He can kill you. I'm not joking. This is as you upgrade the loops, you get 3 secondary or your steam generator pumps are in there. These are your primary coolant pumps, right? Loop C2, condenser cooling. No, these are your. So I guess these are your secondary. Anyway, not okay. We'll get to that in a second.
Now you can check it from your tablet.
What are you talking about? Okay, I forget which. I forget what that is. Anyway, so this is as you upgrade stuff, you'll get more of them in here, different pumps and things. This is your condenser pump that takes the hot water and sends it out to the cooling towers. This leads outside. Ta-da! Cooling towers. There you go. Yes, these pipes are functional. The same blue ones that we saw up on the third floor of the generator room. This leads us back to the decontamination room. So we make a little circle. And there you go. There's all the rooms. I'm going to go back to the control room. And we're going to go through the tablet, and then I'll be done. Actually, we're going to go through the fuel limits first. Demand will go up. As you earn more prestige points, you go up in level. As you add more loops. Let me back up. The reason why going up in your level has a few effects. As you go up in level, the city demands more of you because you're better at this game and you've earned experience points and things like that. With prestige points comes experience points. I don't think they're 1-to-1. But anyway, these are licenses. You don't have to worry about that unless you have audits. This is your experience meter until you get to the second level. This is your prestige points, health, and radiation meter, I believe. If you get radiation poisoning, you can jab yourself with this. It costs money every time you do it, but you just click it. Some things have a little prompt that say, hey, left mouse click. Some don't, but you can. Like this door. Oh, of course, make a liar out of me. What's one that wouldn't? I can't think of it right now. Do these guys? Yeah, they do. Anyway, there's certain things that do, certain things that don't. So what was I talking about? Fuel limits. Okay, as you level up, your demand will go up each day. And if you add a second loop, your demand will double. I believe, but double. I don't know if that like third loop triples it, but anyway, it goes up. Adding more fuel banks, I believe, causes the city's demand to go up because they go, hey, you should be able to create more. In theory, if you just ran this super hot, way hot. By the way, I keep mine at 300 degrees. 280 to 320 is kind of my range, but you play with what you want. Wear and tear is a thing. We'll get to that in a minute. Anyway, so in theory, you could just make as much heat as you wanted. You could set this to 600 and send it all down and through here and a ton of steam and just create a ton of electricity, right? Wrong. The game has artificially built in a wall. A maximum energy output wall of about 35 megawatts. It'll tell you it's 40. I'll show you where to see that in a minute, but it's not 40. It's 35 stably. Really, realistically, until you get more experience in the game, it's probably 30. 30. You can peak as you move stuff. You'll get spikes as high as 60 megawatts, but it's not going to stay there. You can't sustain it. It'll come back down eventually. So once the demand gets higher than say 30 or 35, where are you going to get more energy from? How are you going to produce more? There's two ways. First way is adding more fuel banks. Each fuel bank, there are different kinds of fuel. I'll talk about that in a second. Each fuel bank, if it gives you 35, well, 35 and 35 is 70. So if you add another fuel bank, you can get up to 70 megawatts. Once your demand, the city's demand gets over 70, well, then you'd have to add a third one for 105. Sorry, I'm having an asthma attack. I have to keep turning off my mic. The other way you do it is another loop. And each loop can draw 35 megawatts per bank. Do the math. If you have 2 loops, each one will draw 35 from this bank. If you have 2 banks, you can get up to 70 per loop. Yes, I know the math doesn't match or it doesn't make sense in the real world. In the game, that's how they have it set up. Just go with it. You're just going to have to understand that things are a little different here. So, keep that in mind. As fuel degrades, right, there's a whole system for disposing of it and where it goes and how to do all that stuff. Yeah. Lastly, we're going to go through the tablet. Okay. Save game, load a game, custom alarms. For me, um, for example, my high temp, this refers to the reactor core temperature. Because I like to keep mine at 300, sometimes you'll set the control rods and the temperature will start rising and you walk away. And next thing you look over and like, I'm 100 degrees hotter than I meant to be. So what I do is I set an artificial alarm and I bring this down. And for me, I do 325. No, 325. No, 325. And I save it. So now if my core hits 325, it sets off an alarm. It's not going to cause damage at 325 that it wouldn't have at 460 or whatever. It's set there just so that I can go, oh yeah, ding dong, you need to come over and slow that down. Add more control rods, cool this thing off, right? Let's make it quit climbing. That's all it is. I do the exact same thing with my condenser. More videos, other videos to explain this, but the condenser, if it hits 100 degrees, it will stop generating steam and you won't be able to spin your turbines. So same thing, I set an artificial alarm, page 2, high temperature condenser, I put this at 85. Because again, as it rises, I want to get ahead of it. I don't want it to get to 100. 90 is too close. So if this goes off, like I'm outside of the room, outside the building, wherever, then I can run back and fix it if I need to. Each of these alarm panels more or less pertain to what's beneath them. Fuel's a little bit different because as you get too hot here, it counts as a fuel alarm. It's going to go off over here. And I'll show you what one looks like. High temp, if I set it to like 10. Oh, stop it. If it'll let me. Alarm should go off. No, nothing? Okay. Well, you see it in my other videos. Interesting. Okay. So, yeah. Loading and unloading fuel. You can go see that in the other videos too. Going back to the tablet. I don't know why I just talked about that. Communications. This is where we request to start operations from the city so that we can connect. If you never make the request, you can't just automatically connect to them. They don't allow it. So if you're generating electricity or 3060, you're ready for it to go and be sent to the city, but you're not within the time window, or it's not at the time the city has approved you to start, you're just out of luck. You have nowhere to send it. Maintenance shutdown, if you need to shut down the reactor or stop producing electricity for whatever reason, this will give you a window. Emergency shutdown, right? That's stuff like, oh, something's gone wrong. I just got to do an emergency stop. Yeah, that's what that's for. AO, he can do preventative maintenance analysis, which he just did. I'll come back to the rest of these in a second. And what he does is he goes and he scans the whole building. It says in the report because all he's going to show right now is what needs to be fixed. Things get wear and tear. Most things have wear and tear, and when they hit 100% wear, they then start causing integrity loss. Everything starts at 100% integrity. As it gets, well, if you damage it or if the wear reaches 100, that integrity goes down. Think of it as health. It's the component's health. As that goes down, it's going to perform less gooder and eventually be destroyed, shut off, explode, things like that. If you want to see everything, what I do every time he comes up with a report is I hit filter, I hit all, and I hit accept. He will only fix things, and more on this in a minute, that are where the wear is above 10% or the integrity, I think you have to round down. Like if it's 99.9, I think he sees that as 100 and won't fix it. It has to be at 99. I could be wrong, but keep that in mind. So the core, right, we haven't been using it. It's 100%. How many fuel blocks are stuck? This has to do with chemicals. Control rods, they're all 100% integrity. They're absorbing it 100% because they haven't been used. Gives you some explanation on these things. The internal engine, that refers to the engine that moves the control rods up and down. It's active, not damaged. Circulating pumps. Here's our primary circuit pump, right? Our PCP, primary cooling pump. It's this guy right here. He's at 100% with no wear. Secondary, if I had more loops, they would show up here. Secondary coolant, that's this guy here. Right, our steam generator and then the cooling circuit. That's our tertiary over there, our third one. Primary circuit, condenser circuit. Oh, these are the freight pumps. These are these pumps over. Well, these are the switches for them. Again, on another video, and it's these pumps mostly over here, and are the freight pumps, is what it's referring to there. Again, gives you explanations. Pressurizer, integrity 100%. This is one of the top three that decline or decrease. I'm sorry, no, not the pressurizer. It's the heater. We'll talk about that in a minute. Evaporators, that's your steam generator. Condenser, obviously we know what that is. If there's any contaminated areas, hazard suits, if you damaged it or compromised it in any way. The generating turbine, or your electric turbine. This is where the steam comes in. This is where the electric goes out. And these, since this latest release is 2.2175 patch number, these always match for me. Which makes sense because they're a 1-to-1 ratio. Generating set, that's a fancy way of saying your generator. You can have up to 2. We currently have 1 installed. Emergency batteries. Damaged valves throughout the building. All those little valves and things, right? There's some over there. There's some that are manual. Can we see one from here? Do I see any? Yep, there's one. Right? It'll tell you, oops. If you need to spin that valve, there's a bypass on the side because it's automatic. It won't let you spin it unless you either flip that switch and turn it. So I'll keep that in mind. But it'll tell you how many are damaged by rust or just damaged and won't turn. The pressurizer heater. This is number 2 that gets affected the most. No, number 1 on our list so far. The heater constantly runs, and that's what keeps the vessel pressure up, which keeps the steam out of our coolant system and allows the water in it to be above 100 degrees and not boil. It has to stay above 150. If you want to know about maintaining that and some tips and tricks, other videos of mine. Resistor bank. Just by the nature of being on, it wears. Even though we haven't been using it, it will wear just with time. This is the second thing that wears the most. Pressurizer heater, resistor bank. And so my first 2 purchases are always a transformer and a resistor bank, because the third thing that wears the fastest is the transformer. I will have to service this one the worst, and then I have to service these 3 things multiple times before I have to service something else. Multiple times. The second or the fourth thing is typically the generators, the generator turbine and the electric turbine or electric generator, and then these have to do containers with chemical waste, iron column. These are all different what do you call them? Chemical things. So that's what the maintenance report is. Objectives, we already went over this. This will tell you the different objectives you're trying to complete. Maintenance tasks, as things can be repaired in here. Also, if you damage something, usually it'll tell you why. It'll say event after this. It'll say event overloaded, or it was run dry. I forget what it'll say, but AO will tell you, hey, stupid, this is how you damaged it, and here's how to not do that next time. But you would come in here, it'll have check marks. You click the check marks, you click accept, and he will do it. Some of it has to be off to be fixed, right? You can't fix it while it's running. Pressurizer, pretty easy. You turn it off, you fix it, you turn it back on. The turbine, you bypass it, let it shut down all the way. You can't really turn it off, it's just not spinning, and then you can service it, you bring it back up. Core, you're just shutting down. There's no way you can get to the core and service it without shutting down the entire plant. So keep that in mind. Supplies and parts, you can purchase extra things, more fuel cans, oil cans. There is a capacity. You have a certain number that are here. Also, if we look at something like resistors, it says I have 6. The reason is because there are 4 currently installed in the resistor bank, and I have 2 on the shelf, 2 spares, because these can burn out, and you'd have to replace them. So keep that in mind, that the ones that are installed count toward your total number. AO batteries, you can buy spare batteries. more hazard suits. I don't know why, in case you have other people. Also, this is not what it looks like. Repairing pliers. That was the term. This is the thing that grabs on and fixes those cables. Remember the red and green cables that we saw running along the walls and things? Sometimes if you have catastrophes turned on, like random things. Oh, notice how it's spinning. That's funny. It creates a shadow. I'm going to take a screenshot of that so that I can create a bug. No, I'm not. It won't let me do it. So, oh, now it does. Well, never mind. You probably couldn't see that. Let's see if I can get it to do it. Hold on. Nope. Sorry. Try one more time. Not while I'm making a video. Okay. So, anyway, the welding machine, right, we've seen upstairs, that's for fixing holes in pipes. Fuses, there are fuses throughout the building. You have 60 of them. Not all of these are up in the storage room. Some of them are installed. They're all over the place. Control rods. One thing I want to show you is core fuel. Are there any other? I think it's just core fuel here. There's different classes. This puts out 30 megawatts. I think the limit on this one is 90. Don't go for this one. Okay? Yeah, it's like putting, if you're just starting out, it's like putting racing fuel in your 1989 Honda Civic. It's not gonna help you any. This is for later on bigger demands and things. So just don't. Logistics and delivery as you order things. Okay, ordering. Orders must be in by noon. Once it's 12:01, it will not be delivered to the next day. Orders that are in by noon will be shipped out at 1500. They will arrive at 1800 and start being constructed if they need to, and then become available as they're ready. Service compliance. Once you are connected to the city, these little dashes will go up and down. You have those two peaks I talked about, and it'll give you an estimate of what your demand is going to be. So you can kind of anticipate, oh, okay, it's the 16 o'clock hour. I know that at 17, the demand goes up. It peaks at 18 and then comes back down starting at 2100. So you can kind of anticipate, oh, well, it's 30 minutes before. I better start, ramping things up so I can meet that demand from the city. And I won't give you any spoilers on that. Machines and upgrades. Everything. So I have one emergency generator. I can do certain upgrades on it. The farther down it is, the higher the level you need. And they also cost prestige points, right? Required level, I'm not there. I'm only level 1. Okay, I'll let you read about what these are. If you want to read about it, you click the info button, okay, for each one. You can sell it and you can discard it. There's certain ones you don't want to discard because you can't buy. For example, you can sell your condenser or discard it. You cannot buy another one. It would end your game. I don't even know if the system will let you. Let's find out. I've never tried this. Oh, okay, perfect, good. It's disabled. So you can buy new things. You're gonna have more than one. I have more than one circulation pump right now. I have 3. So you gotta. It tells you where it's at. So you got to kind of figure out which one before you just start upgrading randomly. And that's for all sorts of things. I'll let you go through there. I've been droning on long enough. Marketplace. You can buy new things. You can buy other generators. And again, they have different types. The class A, B, and D. They cost more, but they have different benefits. After I buy, well, I'll just tell you. The first purchase I make is a power transformer. A class A. It's expensive. You can get it after the first day. Because as this wears, my transformer, which is right here, gray means not installed, white means installed but not on, green means installed and on. As this wears down, in order to not shut down the whole system, to repair it, I can't have any electricity going through it. So I'd have to shut down the entire system. Or I buy a second one and I can flip between them. Because if one gives me 150 and the other gives me 150, well, I just swap between them. How to do that is on another video. But the first purchase I make is a transformer. The second purchase I make is a resistor bank and 4 resistors. for that specific reason. Then the third one I make is that upgraded Class C generator, because this one that we have installed takes 8 minutes to start up. That's a long time. The other one takes 1. And you can upgrade it relatively cheap and reduce that by 10% each upgrade. I don't know if those like stack or if it just reduces down to 50%, or if they're cumulative, I don't know. But anyway, so here's other things you can buy. If you needed to buy another loop, pro tip: if you're going to buy stuff for another loop, please look at this diagram first. No spoilers. Gray means installed, not running. Dark gray means not installed. These guys are just weird. They're not installed. Don't worry about if they turn red. It just means they're off. Same thing over here. Gray, not purchased, or not purchased or installed. Purchased and installed. Okay, keep that in mind. Wiki just gives you information on different things. Status. If you're out and about, it'll give you some generic information on some of these things. Web server, if you want to know more about this, ask in the Discord. Help has a few help topics. Bank and invoices. Every day that you use the electricity from the city, they're going to charge you. And they charge you $10 or 10 prestige points. It's super cheap. Cheapest thing in the game by far. If you want to auto pay it, awesome. And then that way they don't stack up, because again, if you let them stack up, you don't pay your bills. The electric company is going to cut you off, which is funny. And you can take out loans. If you have audits on, if you've selected normal difficulty, audits will be here, how you've performed, when they're coming, things like that. And then operational tests. This is where you install or discard fuel, and where you install or remove fuel rods. Those are automated. So that's, going back to AO. Okay, preventive maintenance analysis. That tells him to do that check. It takes a while, so keep that in mind. Setup, you can have him do certain things, such as when he's done charging, tell him to turn on. The reason for that, why you would do that, is if you have this one on. So what he'll do is, if I turn this on, he will just start wandering. It'll say hold right here in a minute. And he's just going to wander around, and he will scan components, and he will scan pipes, and he will scan electrical conduits for damage and report back to you. That's what that's for. If you more on these in a minute. You can turn them off. I just shut them off. You can turn them on. If you try and tell him to do something while he's off, it'll tell you he's out of service. Well, yeah, because I got to turn him on. If he's running preventive maintenance, you want him to do something else, you got to stop him from doing it first. Maintenance tasks. If you click this, it'll just take you to this maintenance task screen on your tablet, so you can click them and get them going. Remote control. You can take control of AO. I am not going to do it for you. It is bugged, and if you get him wet, he's toast. It'll tell you, like, his battery will run out, and it'll be like, I can't charge, I'm wet. The drying mechanism right now is broken, and hopefully it's supposed to work where after some time it will recover on its own, dry off, and he can charge. It's broken right now. Hopefully they'll fix it in the in the next patch. Send a charger. If his battery's a little low, tell him to go charge. This is where, right, if you have this on, when he's done charging, he'll go back out and keep patrolling. Otherwise, once he's done charging, he just shuts off. You can tell him to do specific things. Follow me around. Stop following me. Scan your surroundings. Whatever room he's in, he will scan the components, pipes, and conduits, electrical wires in that room. You can send him to a specific room to scan. I believe this is working again. This one used to also be broken. You can tell him to scan something specific. And if you wanted to know what the pressurized heater is, you just click that, send, and he'll go do it. Or cancel the current command if he's on his way to do something. Sometimes if you want to know, hey, why is what's wrong with my turbine, you can send him to scan just the turbine instead of waiting for him to do an entire plant scan. He cannot go outside for the most part. There is some magic he can do, but don't worry about that. So, and then request assistance in the operating room. You can purchase these. There used to be more. They've been turned off for now. Hopefully they'll come back. And he can do certain things. So right now, You can't tell him to execute emergency stop if required. But if you purchase it, it'll tell you that for just $5. Nope, wrong one. It doesn't tell you. If you buy this, it's really expensive, 15,000. Not really, but it is expensive. Then, if an emergency shutdown is needed, he detects one. He will come in and start doing it for you. Whatever needs to be done. So wherever you are, if you don't know what you're doing, you're panicking, you're dying because of radiation, whatever it is. Unlimited maintenance tasks. Anyway, I'm gonna let you read through these. So, I'll let you read those. So there you go. Right, yeah, he was done charging, right? So he's off. Internal supply, that's the second floor where he lives. And anyway, so there you go. That is the in-depth Beginner's Guide 101 to Nuclearis. If you want to know now, okay, so what button do I push? What do I pull? What do I turn? How do I make this work? Check out my other videos for basic startups. You probably could do the one without all the explanations because I go into some more of what all these things are. There were a couple panels that talk about containment building, like shielding. You don't need to worry about the internal temperature, and unless you have an explosion and stuff, you're not going to worry about this. Your fuel, how to load and unload, and your thermal efficiency in another video. Pressurizer didn't talk about much, but this should always be at 160. This should be at 350. When the heaters kick on, this will be on, and it'll raise this back up. I didn't go through each gauge. Anyway, there's more on all of those in other videos. So anyway, thank you for stopping by. I know this has been long. It's been fun spending this last hour with you, teaching you about this game that I really truly love. I implore you, encourage you to try it out. Test it out. Use this. Hopefully, I taught you something here that you can take and go, okay, why is it doing this, and how can I, whatever, and do it on your own. Because, yeah, it's easy to say, hey, what should I set it at? Well, and you can set it those things, and you won't get the same results because it's so different. It's so dynamic. It depends on your pressure, the time of day, the demand, the wear, the tear, the integrity. There's so many different factors that play into this, and there's so much depth and complexity to it. I really encourage you to explore that. And see it for the enigma and the puzzle that it is. And there's stuff literally outside the building to explore that I don't want to spoil. So, yeah. If you have questions, there's something you want to see, comment. I'm not going to tell you to click the subscribe and click the like, because I'm not here for the clicks. I'm here to help people understand this game that I really, really enjoy, and hopefully help them to be less frustrated so that they can come to enjoy it too, kind of get rid of that learning curve. So, comment if you have questions, feedback for me. Please let me know so that I can create more stuff that people need and want to see, so that we can all enjoy this game together. So anyway, I'm Leonidas. Thank you for stopping by. We'll see you again soon.